I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Randy Smallwood, President and CEO of Wheaton Precious Metals. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, Charlotte. Glad to be back.
Great. And we're here at the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium. Let's start by talking about gold and silver prices. They are both up this year. Is that growth sustainable?
I think it is. I think we're only seeing the start of a movement. We're setting record precious metal prices in so many currencies, or gold specifically, in so many currencies around the world. It's just the U.S. dollar that's so strong right now, and I just don't see that U.S. dollar strength continuing. So I think it bodes very well for precious metals for a long time.
And typically we hear that if gold moves, silver will move even more. Do you see that playing out in 2019?
It always has. Silver is the high beta play on precious metals. One of the reasons that silver moves like that is because so much of it is produced as a byproduct from lead zinc mines and copper mines, and so those mines don't change their production. So that just results in a very delayed response on the supply side whenever it sees price movement. So silver always lags gold, but then it outperforms, and it has done that for the last 50, 60 years. It's going to continue to do that. There's some natural fundamentals in the market that sort of dictate that as being the case. So yes, silver's a good place to play.
Great. As a streaming company, how do price movements among the precious metals impact your business?
Well, it's a real advantage over the traditional mining companies because our costs are fixed. We pay a set amount on a per ounce basis going forward. So when silver goes up $5 an ounce, when gold goes up $100 an ounce, that $5 and $100 gets delivered right back to us and our shareholders ultimately. And so we don't have any swing in terms of low-grade material coming into play. And that's what we see in the mining industry is when commodity prices climb, they tend to chase lower-grade material, which they tend to operate in a general sense on a very consistent margin. So the streaming companies are by far the best way to invest into the precious metal space.
Great, and I assume you always want people to be investing in your company, but is there a particular case right now in this market for investing in a streaming company?
Well, again, I think it's the lack. We've controlled a lot of the risk by making sound investments into good quality mines where our capital cost is defined and our operating cost is defined. We deliver that strong operating cash flow and margins, and we've got good reserve life going forward. And so I would say it's just the strength of the business model. It just delivers solid, real value. We've got a long track record of doing that, and we're going to continue doing that. And as commodity prices move, we're going to capture that benefit and put it right back into the cash and ultimately ounces into the ground and dividends to our shareholders.
Right, and you've been a player in this business for quite a while. We do see other streaming and royalty companies cropping up, though I know there's a few even at this event. So as an investor, how should you choose which one to invest in?
It comes down in any resource investment. You have to look at the quality of the assets. It's the foundation that any company is built on. It's why we put so much focus on the technical due diligence process. It's why the CEO, myself, I'm a geological engineer and I come from an operating background, constantly drive the technical due diligence. And I've seen the business model is a very good business model, but only if you have good foundation assets to build into it. And we've seen lots of companies come in and make all sorts of mistakes in investing into the wrong assets. And there's going to be a few successes. There has been a few failures. It's a matter of how strong, how high quality are the assets themselves, and that's where we differentiate ourselves.
Okay, looking at the precious metals space a little bit more broadly, we've seen mergers and acquisitions be a really big trend this year, especially in gold. Do you see that continuing as the year progresses?
Yeah, to be honest, there was a long time where there wasn't many mergers and acquisitions, so I think we're sort of catching up to what I think is sort of a natural, healthy cycle. I mean, as companies have success, they become attractive, and one of the things with big companies is it's tougher and tougher to deliver growth organically, and so sometimes you have to look and watch for opportunities when your peers are undervalued and step into that space. And we've seen a bit of that over the last while, mainly because, again, companies haven't been, there's been a real lack of investor support into the resource sector, and so there are some really good opportunities out there, especially if you're wise enough to get through all the corporate stuff and get down to the assets and have a good look at the assets and try and find opportunities or places where you can deliver real value back in those assets. And so I do see that as a trend continuing. I think it's necessary. It's part of the whole growth cycle. Happy to report that as that happens, though, we see new companies coming up and producing that weren't around. And so it's part of a healthy cycle.
Any other trends that you're watching in the precious metal space that investors should look at?
Well, again, I just reiterate, and I've heard it several times at this conference, it's only the U.S. dollar that is holding gold and silver and precious metals back. It's only the U.S. dollar. And there's a lot of pressure on the U.S. dollar when you look at it, and I just don't see it being able to hold that strength. And so when that cracks, when the U.S. dollar cracks, you definitely want to be into precious metals.
Okay, as we wrap up, what can you tell us about what is coming next this year for Wheaton Precious Metals? I know you've got Q2 results coming.
Yeah, we've got Q2 results coming up next week, I think the end of next week. Again, our company is so strong, there's very little surprises with respect to our production going forward. All you have to do is look at our partners and how they've done. You can get a sense of that. For the rest of this year, our focus, we're still very active on the corporate development front. We're looking for opportunities. We're still not seeing a lot of investment into the industry, though, in terms of new mine development or acquisitions. We're hopeful that we can close a few acquisitions over the course of the year, but we're not promising anything. I don't have any problem sitting back and waiting for the right opportunities. We always make sure that whatever we invest into has to satisfy the quality criteria for our company. And so we will be patient, but we'll invest wisely when we have the opportunity.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me. That was great.
Charlotte, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Randy Smallwood of Wheaton Precious Metals.